So, chapter 5 of The Whirling Dervishes by Ira Friedlander regards music. And I double check that. Music by Nazeh Azel. Honey of His Counsel, a Phoenix Glossary Bibliography comes next. So, music for worship should be evocative, symbolic, and shouldn't interfere with concentration. Different music tones should be felt in different areas of the body. Muhammad didn't teach to sing Al-Quran and other sayings such as Salah in the way that some people would think. It's about saying it right, but vibration and other such things were taught. As pointed out in the last page, the voice is a musical instrument, or the throat is. Our master means we should follow Prophet Muhammad. It doesn't mean that he is a saint, a god, or anything like that. No one is equal to the Creator. Depending of what the Persian words mean, it probably means the prophet who held no equal to the Creator, or prophet unequal to the Creator. Remember, Jalaluddin was a devout Muslim who preached against shirk, false association with God. Who is a better guide than a prophet? The Khatam an-Nabi, seal of the prophets, has brought joy and love of God. The book he shared is left intact. Muhammad's reward is great, even by heavenly standards. Shams Tabriz repented and submitted to Islam. God's prophets are his purified friends. Following God's prophets is how to cure the heart. And there's a poem that illustrates how non-action is a key to reward. Action is the key to rewards. Okay. So, before I try to say something about my summary, without exactly quoting, because I'm reporting on the type of thing that this book says, is the clear and present issue of the three types of music. Most common is entertainment. People are just wasting their time. So when you waste your time, obviously, people are afraid. Well, if they're willing to waste their time, that's like midway to evil, right? So there's entertainment music. I'm not here on my page to encourage entertainment music. But I will say there is healing music. And that can overlap with the devotional music. And devotional music can be purely voice. The best devotional music is purely voice. But is that saying that musical instruments have to be absent in that category? In certain circumstances, yes, but generally, no. By healing music, I mean music is one of those ways that you can produce drug-like highs. I mean, in the hospital, they give you a little too much. Well, not a little too much. More than is needed. That sort of, but without all the craziness and whatnot. It's one of those methods. But before I continue with the music thing, and of course, I should say something about music in respect that Al-Quran has actually been translated into music. Because there's 30 sounds in Arabic, and people have actually put the Quran to musical tones. Now, this takes the translation issue to such an extreme that some people say, see, you can't translate. But although on the other hand, it's saying, hey, it exalts music to such a point that, hey, we're, instead of the sound coming through the mouth, there's a musical tone going to it. But there are certain restrictions in Islam to music. But I'm going to share something about my door. Because the two types of inspiration that anybody has access to are the book of the self and observing the higher things, so the revealed book, is being hinted at there. But down at the floor here, the book of nature is hinted at with this. It's well with my soul because of the coloring, all that. But scientific knowledge is represented there. Scientific exploration shown by the astrolabe. The expression in an artistic sense is, of course, represented by all those artistic tools there. You can have art with woodworking and all that, but that's expression in terms of being crafty. Of course, with the temple, not only for cleanliness and the fact that vacuuming is probably making such a loud sound that it's hard on your heart, that's, no shoes. Not a requirement. It's good to keep things clean, but, plenty of temples are just dirt floors and whatnot. The book, the revealed book, it, of various ages and places, is maintained through the traditions of the world in fragments here and there. Of course, believe that there is a complete book now, unedited, for this age, containing what we need, referring to all good and all evil. All truth and all ignorance can be referred to with the contents of it. The Shadaliya Dhikr that people would say every day, or even twice a day. And the Tai Chi bit. And of course, reminding that the encouragement of everything good and everything true is to be found here somewhere. And also, you will find that everything evil, everything ignorant or not true, can be said to be condemned here in one way or another. But to share further notes from chapter 5, Nezeh Azel distinguishes between ordinary music and dervish music. And such music is supposed to be a treasure piece of the love of mankind. There's religious music and irreligious music. And irreligious music, is obviously filled with such things as lies, nonsense, and focuses on worldly matters. Now, the worldly matters can be turned spiritual. Hence, that's why we have marriage and other such things. Muhammad never sung what some people would call songs, but he would listen and watch how people would be, and he wouldn't necessarily disapprove of something. Some things he definitely did approve of. And one person was said, "Hey, you have such a beautiful voice. How about reciting Quran?" 1653 and 1725 of the Common Era, Ismail Haki wrote Kitab al-Neket. And, he had a knowledge of grammar, rhetoric, logic, Islamic lore, theology, all without calling up some Goetia demon to do such things. And a virtuous person, of course, would feel the harmony. Jalaluddin's 25,700 verses in the Nawi points to the symbolism of the Nay. The man separated from birth, returning at death. That's what it's all about. Sayyid Sharafuddin listened to the 3-string violin with the coconut shell bottom, but he didn't hear what Jalal called heavenly music. Music continues where speech ends, and when you're expressing things, even if you got the words, use art. Turkish religious music has two branches, the mosque and the mystical music. Well, nowadays it's pretty much entirely beyond those two categories. Music techniques are encoded in his poetry. Just like in my writings and art, I encode things, not to be mysterious and hide information, but to, get information out there in different ways. There's different techniques for the Mevlevi music. Sometimes it's led by a Kadam Zenbashi, drummer, who controls the flow of the music, just like, for example, in Nirvana, Dave Grohl. I guess they could have made it with Chad Channing, but Dave Grohl made the band, to the point where he was. You can say that. The Nazen Bashi does improvisation with his solo, and there's a Macam and a Taksim, and I don't know. There's probably a lot of different terms for music and stuff. There's a rhythm called a duyek, a 2-to-1 used in the sema. The salam, the ev fair, is composed of 9/8 beats. The third salam has a 28 fourths beat to the Sultan Velad cycle. The aksak samai is a limping waltz with 10/8 beats. The yoruk samai is a kind of waltz with a 6/8 beats. And the fastest part of the Mevlevi ceremony, which is a large part of the third salam, has an 8/6 beats. The fourth salam is another evvir that allows the loss of concentration in the Yorick Samai to regain that. Another ney solo with the Yorick Samai at the end of the Peshrev has a 4/4 beat. After the musical recital of Al Quran and praying, where all halt. So it finishes with your typical Muslim sermon, and that's why you have it's done in a different place. The prayer and the teachings and all that can be in the masjid. But you need a separate building to do all the music in. Ismailo Didi created a new school, as well as changing the appearance of classical Turkish music in the 19th century. He lived in Istanbul and was born in 1777 and died in Mecca of 1845, which is a particularly good sign. He's criticized of innovations. But whenever you see a good Sufi documentary with tens of thousands of viewers or something, there's somebody in the comment section, people are only worshiping God in that particular video. There's exceptions, but not the videos I'm thinking of. And somebody always saying, see, it's polytheism and all this other stuff. It's not. You can say it's innovation. Certainly some of the things are sinful innovations, but saying they're worshiping other than God because they're doing something different than us. That's the same logic that these conservative Christians are saying. If you don't speak English, so if you say Yahweh instead of Jehovah, you're not talking about God. If you say Allah instead of God, the Aramaic for God, Alu, Alhim, the Arabic that Christians in the Middle East speak, Allah, Allahumma, it's that same sort of ridiculousness. Shams Tabriz praised the glory of Muhammad as a nightingale above the world. A knot is chanted without rhythm while standing by a Ayinhan. The taksim is performed. It's to walk around the Samahin, the place where the dervish ceremony is, 3 times, and give salams in front of the sheepskin, which, the posts, the sheikh is standing there in the tekke, and supposedly there's secrets transmitted. And I've seen ceremonies where there's gestures and that's, how things are transmitted, but it's a repeated transmission and through ritual and all that. The first nat is praising Muhammad, the second a ney improbation, the third a cycle of Sultan Beled, this next is 4 salems, the 8th is the final instrument piece, 9th is reciting Quran, finally with a prayer. So the 10-part dervish ceremony. Buhur is Itivri. Buhur is Mustafa Itri composed music to the knot between 1640 and 1712. The words from Jalal's knot, O master of friends, thou well beloved of God, prophet without equal. Okay, that's going beyond the Islamic thing. Most of the ceremony is oral. It's not just music and spinning. Ru Iraq was composed in Konya and played in 1964, and the recording was issued by UNESCO. It was thought not possible to record the music in Western notes. Ahmed Avi Kanuk will be credited with the music's survival if it does, because I guess he put it into Western notes. Osman Didi composed 4 great ceremonies. So it's a living tradition. And living not in the sense of it goes beyond the, here's what we're taught. What we're taught changes, the basis of the things can change. The zahmi and the metal cap, the kitik, stuffing between the cap, their drums, the rufais play their drums while standing, the halil cymbal, the mazhar, a tambourine, the rabab, the siki hat, the turn, slumber bound, going beyond your clay vessel. But I guess in final, I should say something of another type of dhikr, the tabligh dhikr. They go over the last 10 surahs of Quran and the first one. And there's some African ones that, like for example, I've seen how for one you have 10 recitations of Alam nashrah laka sadraka wa wada'na zakra alladhi qad shahraka wa rafanna laka dhikraka fanna ma yusirun inna ma yusirun fada faragda fansab wala rabbika fargab. Of course, starting with Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. They recite that 10 times, and then they recite the 4 quls. Qul huwallahu ahad, Allahu samad, lam yalid wa lam yulad wa lam yakul lahu kufuwan ahad. 10 times after قُلْ يَا أَيُّهَا الْكَافِرُونَ لَا أَعْبُدُ مَا تَعْبُدُونَ وَلَا أَنْتُمْ عَابِدُونَ مَا أَعْبُدُ وَلَا أَنَا عَابِدٌ وَلَا أَنْتُمْ عَابِدُونَ مَا أَعْبُدُ لَكُمْ دِينُكُمْ وَلِيَّ دِينِ. I messed up with that one, didn't I? قُلْ يَا أَيُّهَا الْكَافِرُونَ لَا أَعْبُدُ مَا تَعْبُدُونَ وَلَا أَنْتُمْ عَابِدُونَ مَا أَعْبُدُ وَلَا أَنَا عَابِدٌ مَا عَبَدتُّمْ وَلَا أَنْتُمْ عَابِدُونَ مَا أَعْبُدُ لَكُمْ دِينُكُمْ وَلِيَّ دِينِ. And the second to last of the quls. قولوا برب الفلاق من شر ما خلق ومن شر غاسق إذا وقب ومن شر النفاثات في العقد ومن شر حاسد إذا حسد. And the last qul. قولوا برب الناس ملك الناس إله الناس من شر وسواس الخناس الذي يوسوس في صدور الناس من الجنة والناس. And one of the reasons why you see people say the last 10 surahs of the Quran, aside from being, really short ones and good for people to learn, and of course, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Maliki yawmiddin. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. Ihdinas siratal mustaqim. Siratal ladzina an'amta 'alaihim ghayril maghdubi 'alaihim waladdallin. And then the response to the first surah. Ameen. So, the passage of enlightenment, the freedom of religion, the summary about God, the two protections, the first of which, warns us about certain practices and the fact that, hey, darkness and evil are not the same thing. And the final one, closing with the address to the beings of choice, the human and the fireman, to take Lord, King, God. That is who we're worshiping. That's all in the same being. Who is, so one has that order. This is like 94, 109, 111, 112, 113, 114 in Surah 1. They recite that 10 times a piece as a group.